Okie dokie. I'm getting everything set up right now, but I will go ahead and give an intro. My name is Anne. I go by Leftist Blondie or Through the Lens here on YouTube and other platforms. So if you would like to watch more of stuff like this, like, subscribe, and keep up so you can see all that I post. I was on Jubilee about a week ago. I will be reviewing the debate that I had. It was 1 capitalist versus 20 anti-capitalists. So it was with Patrick Bet-David. He's known by Valuetainment. He runs a podcast and he's runs a MLM as well. So we'll get that check out. And I'm going to share the link out to people. Let me see. And we'll see how it goes. Alrighty. Let's see. Okay, let me get the stream pulled up. Oh, there we go.
That was fast.
Hi, I'm Anne.
Anne, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I do want to address part of the claim about poverty, but I also want to address what you brought up about like paying taxes. Mm-hmm. You said the top 1% pays a large amount of taxes. The problem is that the bottom 2 quintiles can't pay taxes because they quite literally have no wealth. You understand that? Like the bottom quintile of the United States doesn't have any wealth. In fact, they're in debt, so they have literally like negative wealth.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's for a lot of reasons. I think that's because workers have been exploited. I think that they haven't had the opportunity to gain social mobility.
Why do you think that is?
Because of exploitation.
You think they're being exploited? So people are being forced to work at companies. They don't have a choice.
I didn't say that they were
forced. So people are being...
they are being forced.
I also never said that. I never said that workers were forced. But in a sense, if you wanted to talk about that, we could have. But he immediately pivots away from my first point.
What job do you have right now? What do you do for a living?
I do work from home stuff.
Okay, so you chose to do that, right? That's your choice. Great. If somebody works at Starbucks as a barista, it's their choice. If somebody has
another pivot, by the way, he's still focusing on the choice thing. Asked me about where I work, what I do, which is not the topic we're talking about.
Job that they're working is their choice. If somebody is not utilizing their time properly and accordingly, of course the market's not going to pay you.
Do you think that, like, they brought up single mothers earlier? Do you think that single mothers are sitting around playing Fortnite 15 hours a day?
Single mothers were manipulated on what happened.
Is that a yes or no?
Single mothers were manipulated.
Notice how he won't answer questions. He goes into this like storytelling thing, and Patrick Bet-David is really good at this, at storytelling to kind of explain things, but no statistics, especially we'll get into some of the statistics he mentions later, at least not accurate ones.
Manipulated by what Lyndon Johnson came out with. They changed the benefits on giving single mothers the incentive to have kids on all the welfare program. That changed our system in a major way. The feminist movement got single mothers to believe they don't need men and they're going to do everything by themselves and they don't need a man to help them out. This division that's happened between us caused many people to be in the situation that they're at.
Most households are 50-50. They're closer to 50-50 today, so that has nothing to do with feminism. Feminism didn't just like convince women because they're too stupid.
Feminism was one of the worst things that happened in America because...
Yeah, feminism is the thing that causes households to be 50-50 today, for sure.
The pin men against women.
Do you think that women are so stupid that they've been brainwashed? Okay, so you don't think that they've just fallen into this feminist propaganda? You don't think they're idiots?
No, I don't think that, but I do think people can be manipulated
but they're
and brainwashed.
Not stupid enough to do that because the majority of people are splitting nearly towards 50-50.
So they haven't fallen for it, but they've also at the same time been manipulated. So they have fallen for it or they haven't fallen for it? Like, which one is it?
That stole decades away from their lives, because they bought into an idea that didn't produce the results.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about capitalism is the best economical system.
He's really hard to keep on track. So he's going to go back to, here's now back to the prompt when he's been jumping around the entire time.
Best results for people.
But we can't just jump back and forth between claim to claim to claim. So the claim about feminism brainwashing people into being single mothers.
No, I didn't. I said feminists originally brainwashed women to believe men are the enemy. That led to where we are today. Last week report came in. Single mothers? Yes, in many cases because they don't need men.
Do you have evidence for that? 100%. You really think a single mother wants to be a single mother?
Absolutely, we have evidence of that.
You think the single mother making minimum wage down the road, like working for some grocery store, having to take care of all of her children, is just like, I just don't need a man. I just want to be independent. I'll live in abject poverty.
What percentage of the U.S. revenue that we get in do you think we use for entitlement programs? What percentage?
I don't remember the exact
percentage. What do you think the number is? So we bring in $4.9 trillion.
In private spending.
We bring $4.9 trillion in. Okay, the U.S. revenue comes in. What percentage do you think goes to entitlement programs?
Here he's going to ask me the question again. He asked me the question the first time. I said, I don't know, but it's much less than OECD countries because I am familiar with the statistics on this. I just didn't have the specific number in my head. He's going to ask me again and again. And when I don't answer and I keep saying, hey, I don't know, he's going to give me some bogus number.
What do you think is a reasonable number?
Well, what you're calling entitlement programs, I'm actually not sure what you mean by that.
I'm talking about
Then he
Social
asked me a second question. What do you think a reasonable number is? Well, that's different from what I think the actual number is.
Security. I'm talking
Okay,
about
so social
Section
welfare.
8. I'm talking about any of these.
It's much less than other OECD countries.
What percentage do you think
I don't
it is?
remember the exact percentage, but
I
it's
want
much
you
less
to
than
guess.
other
What do you
OECD
think it is?
countries.
You think
We
it's
are
10%,
far behind.
20%, 30%? What do you think the number is?
No, but it's relatively low compared to
But
other
what do
OECD
you think it
countries.
is? Can you guess the number?
I don't remember the number off
It's
the top of my head. I've already said that.
68%. How much more entitlement?
68%. Can we fact check that?
Even once they get fact checked, which I actually don't agree with the way that Jubilee fact checked this, I will say that because it's misleading. There's a little bit of jumping around here about what he's actually claiming is happening. But even when you fact check it, it doesn't even come out to 68 like he said it is. You can see that here.
Can fact check that.
Okay.
Please do so.
Please.
68% goes to entitlement
Of our
programs.
federal budget?
No, of the revenue that comes in, 68%.
So the cabinet, GDP.
Not GDP. You're confusing the two different things here. Actual tax revenue that we get.
Okay, so tax revenue.
68%
Okay, now
of
we're
it goes
specific.
towards entitlement programs. 68%.
Yeah, what he was saying here, and I'll rewind and we can go back and look at this number. Oh, what a face.
Do you think the single mother making minimum wage down the road, like working for some girl?
Program, 68%.
Oh my gosh.
20%, 30%. What do you think the number is?
No, but it's relatively low compared to
But
other
what do
OECD
you think it
countries.
is? Can you guess the
I
number?
don't remember the number off
It's
the top of my head. I've already said that.
68%. How much more entitlement?
68%. Can we fact check that?
Okay, so 60% of federal spending went toward entitlements, including Social Security, Medicare, and federal pensions. Notice that 60% is not 60% of the revenue. That is 60% of the budget. Federal pensions include things like retirement programs for federal employees or civil workers. So he's taking this and going, oh, well, it went to, what did he call them? Entitlement programs. So that 60% includes all three of those things, including pensions for employees, for these federal employees. So he's not talking about food stamps. He's not talking about like EBT or anything like that. He's talking about Social Security and Medicare and federal pensions. That's one thing to keep in mind. And that 60%, like I said, once again, is not part of the total revenue. It's part of the budget. Now, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, we can actually pull it up, and I want to do this. So let me change my screen to, let's see, to screen sharing. Oh, let me open a new tab. We'll take a look at this. Okay, so we'll look at total U.S. tax revenue, and that's 4.92 trillion. Like the video says, I think it says it. Yeah, 4.9 trillion in tax revenue, which is what he clarified at the end is what he was talking about, which when you say revenue, that's very tricky as to what you're saying there. But it does seem like even if you said, hey, we actually do spend 83% of our tax revenue back on Social Security, Medicare, and federal pensions, they're not talking about like programs that people are just mooching off the government for. They're talking about Social Security, so people's retirement funds. They're talking about Medicare. Even if he's against Medicare and you cut that out, you're still talking about federal pensions for people who are employed. So he's not talking about food stamps or these types of programs that have enabled single mothers. I don't know how, I mean, unless he wants to say something like retirement funds have enabled single mothers to just leave their husbands. And even if they had, he has to somehow make an argument that that's somehow a bad thing and that thing has led people to not be able to gain social mobility. And he hasn't done any of that. That sadly was the point where I got voted out. I think it's really unfortunate because he's very much a leapfrog to jump from something like, well, why do you think that is for the bottom two people? It still doesn't explain the point that I made. Like it doesn't, the data, whatever he's giving me, the false data, still isn't explaining the other data. So it's not like feminism, women think they're independent now, and therefore the bottom two quintiles don't have wealth. there's a large jump there that hasn't been connected or substantiated. So really sucks. I actually do kind of want to go over some of the other people's parts because I think that they did really good jobs. Specifically, One Hand Politics, his name is Mason. Zena, I think, did phenomenal in this debate, and I think Gabby did as well. So I'll probably go at least over one or two of their points. I think they did great, and I think you guys deserve to see that, and I think they deserve to have their voices heard on that too. So we'll go back here now that we've gone over my part. Here's the initial claim. The first claim: incentive is the engine of capitalism. Remove it and the system fails. Let's see, right here.
Hey, appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Here's, I think, Zena's first part. I think she went up twice, maybe 3 times.
How are you? What's your name?
Zena.
Zena.
Awesome. So this claim about incentive is one that we see often promoted by capitalism lawyers, right? And it's this idea that, profit incentives is the only thing that can make humans do things, get up out of bed every day, which has never been the case. Historically, it's not the case. Psychologically.
Historically, it's never been the case?
No.
What has been the case?
So we've seen.
What's been the incentive?
The incentive is intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic motivation?
Of course. Have you ever heard of intrinsic motivation?
Of course I have. So you think people are going to go just do anything for no incentives?
The incentive is intrinsic, meaning passion, interest, and honing your skills.
Whether you get paid or not?
Well,
He strawmans here, if you notice it, because she says people are incentivized to do X labor intrinsically by the nature of the labor. And she's talking about a Marxist idea, but people are incentivized intrinsically. And he's saying, you think people are going to go to work and work for nothing? He's calling that intrinsic motivation nothing. But she's saying, no, they are getting an incentive, and the incentive is the work itself. So it's not nothing. That is the incentive.
To need to work to survive.
So what's the alternative? So give me another solution, another
may I
economical
finish
system.
talking?
Yeah, actually,
right,
I'm curious.
So psychological theory of self-determination is widely accepted in psychology. It basically explains that intrinsic motivation and passion is actually what predicts incentive. You're arguing that incentive is integral.
No, I don't know. I have a degree in psychology. I don't know about this theory. I can't comment on it. I know about Marx's theory about labor, things like that. But I like the psychology and part of it. But I don't know specifically about what theory she's talking about.
Profit-driven motivation, that's not true. Extrinsic motivation, at all times, at every single case, is going to predict less creativity, less motivation, less skill, etc. Intrinsic motivation is what causes things like technological development. Some of the greatest breakthroughs have been from people who are devoted in honing their skill.
So should they get paid for it?
I think that we shouldn't live in a system that privately owns means production and forces people in this position.
What college did you go to?
USC.
You went to USC. What did you major in?
Sociology.
Sociology. Who's your hero as a professor? Who's the professor you look
This
up
doesn't seem like a topic.
Do you know
that's
why I
related
asked
to
this question?
capitalism.
The reason why I asked this question is because somebody convinced you of that.
I like Zena. She's got a bit of fire to her.
Convince you that
So
is
psychology and studies convinced me of this fact about the human mind.
Unfortunately, to your claim, results show that the greatest economical system is capitalism that allows people to go above and beyond and solve every single issue out there. An entrepreneur who gets up, who says,
what was your claim again, mister?
I'm going to incentive. The entrepreneur who has an incentive to go out there and build their lives, and you put
so I'm saying that this incentive that you're talking about, what predicts the best incentive, the best drive, and the best creativity has been proven by psychology. Can we respond to my claim?
This is about incentive.
All right, awesome. So you're arguing that incentive is intrinsic and tied to extrinsic motivation. What we find is that the best incentive comes from intrinsic motivation.
So a person that's passionate about solving an issue is going to build something bigger than somebody else that's not.
Yeah. So someone who has a true.
So there might be some truth in that I can speak on here about this type of theory that she's pointing to.
Passion.
Sorry, I'm not going to pause her on like an uncouthly view. But it does seem maybe she's pointing to something like conditioning. If you're going to condition someone to do something, a lot of the times you can have a sort of intrinsic conditioning that they call classical conditioning. So that you're classically conditioned to something, you're rewarded by the nature of what you're doing and the nature of like just your own satisfaction from doing the thing versus having some other stimuli that rewards you, which is what we would call operant conditioning. So you're not having anything added in like money to encourage you to work. You're just working, and the nature of the work that you're doing is self-satisfying. So this could be what she's pointing to, and it seems likely to be the case.
Yeah, so
exactly. So profit motivation is not the thing that's driving innovation, right? Psychology.
Of course,
so psychology proves that's not the case.
If there's not,
that profit's not the reason.
I will say one thing that she's doing here. She's saying it either has to be one or the other, and it can very clearly, obviously, be both. If you're put into an environment where money is the way to survive, the money is motivating because you have to survive. It might just be that people have better psychological outcomes if they're not motivated by the need to survive and they're motivated by other factors. And they might enjoy their work more or be more productive, which was a point that she brought up as well.
greatest inventions that we do today.
I don't know if I disagree with the fact that there's a passion behind it. Are you saying people with passion, even if there wasn't the incentive to make as much money as they would make, people would still pursue it even with or without money?
That's what psychology
Well,
says.
your claims are wrong, because
That's not true.
Whoever your psychology professor is, if you look at data and you find that how America, that's only been around for 249 years, schooled all the other countries that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years more, they did better than others because the incentive
because they accumulated profit, right, to 1% of the population and continue to produce on that basis. Right? We have this. Okay.
It's not necessary.
Do we want to respond, because you can say that
you've been interrupting the entire time. So if you're saying about the 1% are the problem and they're the only ones that make money, a lot of people make money. You said the profit goes to the 1%.
I'm explaining how it is that America has become the dominant power that it is now.
Yeah, that's another straw man. She never said, oh, the profit is going to.
What we see is that because we have this engine, right, this desire to accumulate profit, we morally justify things like going to other countries, imperializing them, colonizing them, extracting their resources, right, to funnel our country, right? Social democracies in the Nordic countries don't do this. So yeah, they might not be the wealthiest power, but they have higher rates of education, literacy, human satisfaction, etc. Right? So it depends on what we actually value in society. Do we value well-being, or do we value profit accumulation?
Validates your point. If that's the case, people would move to those states. They don't. When you judge a great restaurant by the amount of people that come in, you can say the food sucks here.
Yeah,
you can say the service sucks here.
That
but
live in
everybody's
Germany,
lined up to want to come.
This isn't necessarily true. That's very silly of him to say that. If that was the case, if all of these countries were so great, then people would just move there. People in, countries where there's abject poverty, where the vast majority of the population is living in abject poverty, aren't moving to the US, or at least a lot of them aren't. Why is that? We do have immigration, yes, but why aren't all of them moving? Why aren't literally every single why isn't every single family moving to the U.S.? Okay, well, there's other reasons. We know what those reasons are.
Lined up to go into those countries. They're just used by professors as theories.
There are millions of people that also lived in Germany in the 1920s.
I lived in Germany before as well for 2 years.
He makes a point and he doesn't actually respond to what she's saying. Like she's saying, like, yeah, there were people who lived in Germany, and I know their time was up, but there were people who lived in Germany who weren't happy and didn't want to live there, and they didn't move or whatever. And his response was like, yeah, well, I lived in Germany too. Okay. What did that have to do with anything? He's, like I said, he's a storyteller.
Before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight.
Skip past this. I think Gabby did a great job. This is her part.
My next claim is capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system.
Patrick,
how are you?
I love her response.
So I would argue that governments have actually lifted the most people out of poverty. If you look historically, we look at China, for instance, had the most significant poverty reduction in all of human history. They pulled 800 million people out of poverty using state-owned enterprises and state centralized planning. They did work with the capitalist system, but they did it. Most of it was done through state-funded infrastructure, education, and contributing to strong literacy programs, redistributing the wealth. I think that my other argument would be that there hasn't been an opportunity for alternative systems like socialism to pull enough people out of poverty. So we look at examples. There hasn't been enough opportunities for them to succeed. And so when we say, I think that is partly because of the US, and I think because capitalist forces and global market insecurities have sabotaged these attempts to do socialism. So we look at an example in Chile in the 1960s, they elected a democratic socialist. And
I love Gabby, by the way. If I pick up the way that she said Chile, that's just me. I'm very, very Southern American. So I just thought that was funny. I love her though. She's great. We DM'd today. I was like, I'm so nervous.
Wealth redistribution, land reform, and all of that was a threat, obviously, to the United States because McCarthyism was on the rise at the time. And so instead of allowing Allende to have a chance with that, the U.S. Orchestrated a CIA-backed coup to take over and to have a military dictatorship that led the country instead of Allende, who actually was having a lot of success in reducing the poverty rates before the U.S. interfered. And so I think we look at other parts of Latin America, like Venezuela, for instance, and we see the same thing. We see that the U.S. has interfered several times. With Chavez in Venezuela, he was able to reduce the poverty reduction in half in the first decade of him being in office. And
this is interesting. Their fact checks are interesting.
He was sabotaged ultimately by the U.S. and by military dictatorship, so that the people that replaced them were actually.
So may I respond? It's a lot of different cases here. So thank you for that. So let's go China first. Okay, so when you say China was able to recover and because they use state-funded, nationalized systems. So in 1978, Xi Jinping, the leader of China, went to Japan. He saw what was going on with Japan for 2 decades. Every year their GDP was growing by 15%. The economy was doubling pretty much every 4 years. They go over there. They say we got to find a way to compete with Japan. How do they have fewer people, but they're beating us? They sit down with their leaders after a few drinks. Eventually they say, how did you fix your economy to be growing the way that it is? A capitalistic society that they had in Japan. They asked the question from Xi Jinping. the Prime Minister Fukuda, asked a question. How many banks do you guys have in China? He says, we have one bank. He says, a nationalized bank? He says, yeah. That's it? Yeah. How many loan officers do you have? Not many. You want to compete with one bank? Yes. He says, if you want to compete with us or others, here's what you have to do. You need 5,000 banks with 35 branches, with 30 loan officers. That's a total of 5.25 million loan officers and a population of 600 million people that are living there. You do that every week. You take 10 applications with these loan officers for small business owners, and you allow the small business owner to compete. They did that.
Notice how he's not responding to her. He's not responding to the points that she's made. He's storytelling again.
China started competing. By the way, in America in the 1920s, we had around 30,000 banks when we were really, competing in the marketplace. In the 80s, we ended up having around 14,000. Today, we only have 4,100 banks in America. That concept of allowing just one bank to compete, it's not going to work. China takes on the idea from Japan.
If I can interrupt you, I think that
they start growing with certain capitalistic philosophies.
I think you're thinking about this in very capitalist terms, which makes sense. You're a capitalist. But
because it works. That's the idea. Because it's produced the results.
About these scenarios in a situation where market mechanisms are in place. And this is the problem that I have with so many capitalists is they can't exit their worldview and try to see a world where socialism could be in place because they don't understand the untapped potential of socialism. And I'm a democratic socialist. I think that we need to build forward towards that with reforms, and I think we need to work with the government. I don't think that we should abandon the state. I also don't think that we should give state elites the complete control over society. I do think that we should work with the state to instill these reforms and then eventually erode capitalism.
But unfortunately, socialism has had hundreds of years to produce results, and it hasn't worked. Do you know why it doesn't work, though?
It's been sabotaged.
It's been sabotaged, or it's because it forces people to do something they don't want to do?
Does capitalism not do the same?
No, capitalism gives you
there's 7 million people in this country who have to work multiple jobs just to get by.
I have to work multiple jobs
They're forced to do that because either they do that or they starve. So if the options are to work or to starve, that's not freedom, that's economic coercion.
Respectfully, if you do that for a period of your life, I understand it. If you're doing that for 30 years, you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't be working multiple jobs for the rest of your life.
So first of all, I'm not going to argue with this moral argument. I think that people who live in poverty, especially when we look at how many people live in poverty in this country, and also it depends on how you define the poverty line, but there's 40 million Americans who live below the poverty line in this country. There's 3 guys in this country that own 40% of the wealth. How does that work in a country that is
You really want to go there? You want to go there? Okay, so let's talk about it. So when we talk about the rich people,
the 3 richest Americans have more wealth than the bottom 50%. Yes. The top 1% owns like 98% of the wealth, I think. Or it's point. I could be wrong, isn't it? Somebody's going to correct me. Don't eat me up for that. It's either 1% or 0.1% or something like that.
At the top, okay? And you say, well, the rich don't pay enough taxes. You know what the bottom 50% of taxpayers in America pay towards the revenue that the government gets in taxes? Do you know what the bottom 50% pays? I mean, 2% of taxes.
This is what I respond to, by the way, in my next point about taxes.
Do you know what the top 1% pays?
There's been several years.
Do you know what the top 1%?
They've been nothing.
No, hang on a second. This is from the IRS. I'm not writing a blog from Huffington Post. This is not Daily Beast. I'm telling you the story. The top 1% pays.
I'm telling you the story. She admits to it.
I'll say this: the top 1% is about to pay a lot less in taxes because of the provision that just went into Trump's your guys' big beautiful bill.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think, like I said, I think that I think Gabby did wonderful. I think Gabby is intelligent, very well spoken. I responded to that point with the bottom 2 quintiles not having wealth and not being able to pay taxes because they don't have wealth. He never responds to that, but you guys can rewatch the beginning and see if you want to see me talk about that. I'm probably going to go through Mason's part because I think he did very well. And I'll go through some of the more cuckoo ones, like he talks to this guy and offers him a job. So I'll watch that part.
I can't whenever I can.
It's a choice.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Appreciate you for being respectful.
He's a really weird guy. Let's see.
I'm glad y'all tripped over each other because I did too. How's it going? James.
What's your name? James.
So one of the things that you have stated is that we have options. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of my background, I come from a divorced family and we lived below the poverty level from the time that I was born until now, frankly. So I'm one of those people that you're talking about that isn't pulling themselves up by their bootstraps enough, which like I didn't have boots to begin with. And like, I don't know if you've ever had boots where like legs are load bearing structures.
I relate.
And like, you can't really pull up a boot when you're wearing it, you know? So where exactly am I failing when I'm working 80 hours a week? I am taking
I know this is like personal anecdote stuff, but I think, one, it's important for people to hear this. And 2, I think I love the point how it's hard to pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you don't have boots in the first place. The biggest predictor of wealth in the United States is being born into wealth. So it's like, or at least one of the biggest predictors being born into wealth. So it's like, the point still stands, obviously, like it's a lot harder to gain wealth when you didn't come into wealth. And I think that's a great point he's making. At some point during this conversation, Patrick Bet David references me for some reason in the conversation. I was like not paying attention when he did, and I just was like taken back.
The only jobs that will hire me. I have put in 477 applications over the last 2.5 years. Not even gotten a call back once.
Why do you think?
You tell me. You're a job creator.
But I don't know your resume. You know your life better than I do. Why do you think you have not gotten a call back on 477?
Because
a lot
I
of
do
people
not
get
have a degree.
callbacks. Okay.
Because I do not have a degree because I could not afford one.
Okay.
I live in an area where the physical job market is very limiting.
Where do you live?
I live in rural Texas.
Okay.
So in that, like in the town that I grew up in, for instance, there are 8 jobs, period.
Does your family live there, mom, dad, everybody's in that same city?
Everybody was at one point.
Okay.
Most of them are dead now.
Okay, sorry to hear.
It is what it is. It's poverty. You know, we're kind of used to that on this side.
Why do you feel like you're a victim? Why do you feel like you're a victim? Why do you feel like the way you speak, like, you know, you're the victim where all this happened to you?
Because I exist and things happen to you. And as
it's interesting, the guy has never once said, hi, Hermie, by the way. Also, hi, Jaden. I saw you guys in chat. This guy has never once said, I'm a victim. Like, like he just talks about how hard he's working. Like, he's like, look, I've put in all these job applications. He's kind of saying, here, I'm asking you, what do I do about it? What do you think the problem is? What do you think this solution to the problem is? Whatever you think the problem is. So this whole you're being a victim thing, when this guy hasn't victimized himself once, he's just like, look, I just grew up in poverty. Sometimes you get stuck in shitty situations, and if your family's dead and you're struggling to find a job, it is what it is. But capitalism is part of the reason why.
Such things
not
happen.
Like
That's why I
itself
say they happen
You're
to
a
me.
good-looking guy. Why do you think you're a victim? Why do you think you're somebody that's got into a situation because it's not fair what happened to me?
This is a weird conversation. You're a good-looking guy. Why do you think you fell into this situation? Brother, what?
Give you a couple options.
Sure.
Are you open to leaving the city you're in?
I've already left it.
So what city?
I've left multiple cities.
So if somebody else gave you a job in a different place, you'd be willing to move there?
100%.
Okay. On your resume. On your resume.
It says that.
What do you have on your resume? Skill set. What do you offer?
Transportation expertise, logistics expertise.
You consider yourself a hard worker?
I mean, I feel like 80 hours a week.
That's a hard worker.
Sure.
How about we do this? How about I interview and I give you a job? Would you move to Fort Lauderdale?
Ooh, that's Florida. Sure, why not?
Would you move to Fort Lauderdale?
Sure, why not?
How about you and I document this? After this, you come, I do an interview with you, and I give you a job. And let's see what you do 90 days later.
Okay, and I'll look up your company and all that kind of stuff, and I'll see it. But
see what just happened right
regardless,
there? Well, watch what you just did.
Sure.
You just said you applied to 477 companies who's not gone back to you.
Yeah.
A business owner who's hiring aggressively just made an offer to you. You said you're willing to move. Then you said, I'll look at it. You became selected.
I didn't say I look at it if you let me finish my sentence.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
I would like to look into your company to see exactly what you guys do.
You would like to?
Because I don't know what you guys do. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, I may be wasting my time going, if you guys are a finance company, if you guys are a bank or something like that, I don't have the certifications, I don't have the degrees. So even interviewing me would be a moot point.
If I gave you a job, period, to work 80 hours a week, would you take it? And I paid you a reasonable wage.
Are we talking a livable wage or a reasonable wage?
What
And
do you
whose
make right
version
now?
of reasonable are we
What do
talking
you make
about?
right
Your
now?
version of reasonable or my version of
But you see,
reasonable?
so now for me, what I'm noticing from you is
I need specifics?
No, not necessarily. No, most of the people I hired need specifics. The difference is I'm trying to hire them. In this instance, you're trying to get a job and you're being selected. It's going to work against
And
you.
I'm not trying to get a job. Originally, I was trying to ask you where the moral failing.
My offer's off the table
Okay, that's
because you're
fine.
going to be difficult to work with.
Okay, sure. But my question was, where is my moral failing? Like, where is it that you are saying?
Yeah, notice how it goes from the guy coming up to ask him, where's my moral failing? What is the moral failing of somebody who can't find a job, who's done what I've done, who's tried to make it in the system and tried to go anywhere and everywhere to find a job without a college degree? What am I doing wrong? What am I failing at? And he's not answering, and he's just jumping to this, I'm going to offer you a job. And then your problem is if you don't accept the job right away on the spot, then that's your problem. Then you have an issue. And then there's something wrong with you because of that. Or the guy's just look, man, I just want to know if I'm qualified for the job that you're giving me. If you offer me a job in tech and I don't have a tech degree, how am I going to work the job? How am I going to know what to do? And he's just see, that's the problem, guys. That's it. We figured it out.
That I am not working hard enough and I am not doing
I just
enough.
experienced it right now because you.
I mean, he even said he was willing to relocate. I don't think I'd be willing to relocate to find a job. I mean, maybe if I was really down in the dumps, but relocating to find a job is terrifying. But he's even willing to do that.
The way you just handled the situation.
Got it. So I should accept anything that somebody gives me at first blush if it is a guaranteed thing.
No, not necessarily.
I agreed to do your interview. I agreed to be interviewed by you, and you agreed to consider me for hiring.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am taking that opportunity. I've chosen to. But because I am asking you for specifics, your immediate reaction is that, oh, well, you're trying to be picky. I'm not. I'm asking.
Also, number one red flag: if an employer offers you a job, doesn't tell you what the job is, doesn't tell you what you're going to be doing, really where it's located at all, and then you tell them I would just like to know more about your company, I'll look into it, can you tell me about your company later? And the employer goes, see, that's your problem, that's why you can't get a job. Number one red flag. Never accept a job offer like that.
You could have said,
I said I need to look up your company. That's all I said.
Is I'm willing to have the interview.
And I did.
You would have the interview.
And I did.
No, you said it depends.
I said, yeah, sure.
Let me look.
Yeah, sure. I would look into your company. That's all I said.
I appreciate you. Thank you, James.
Okay, I don't know who's going up this time. Oh, it's this girl. This one is even funnier, I think, in my opinion.
Hi,
It's
I'm
kind
Faye.
of weird.
Faye?
Yeah,
Good to
nice
meet
to meet you. So how would you define socialism? Because I think you're kind of misunderstanding what anti-capitalist ideals look like. I think we are just trying to advocate for basic rights for our people in this country and across the world, of course. But I don't think it's necessarily about equal wealth disparity around the world for most people that are anti-capitalist. I think it's more about just standard rights that are provided by the government.
Standard rights that are provided by the government.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll give her this. This is a little bit vague. Or I'll give him this. This is a little bit vague coming from her. Standard rights by the government. That's not very specific as to what socialism or communism is, or anti being an anti-capitalist. She doesn't get much into that, as far as I'm aware.
So
Go a little bit deeper. So for you, when the claim here is, if the money in the world were divided equally,
so
it would
I
return
think-
to the same pockets within 5 years. Do you disagree?
Also, this
Yes.
is the claim, by the way, just for anyone wondering. If all the money in the world were divided equally, it would return to the same pockets in 5 years. That's an empirical claim. He does nothing the entire time to substantiate that.
Why you disagree?
yeah, so I disagree because I don't even think many people are trying to argue for that.
People are not trying
So
to
like,
argue
who are
for
you
that.
arguing in this
Yeah,
debate?
what I'm trying
There's
to
like
say-
a very select amount of people that are trying to argue for equal wealth disparity.
Yeah.
Most people are at least trying to at least advocate for wealth and at all for people that don't have access to healthcare right now, that don't have access to a good education right now, that don't have access to their basic needs.
That
like,
depends. She also makes an empirical claim here. Most people, and I'm assuming she means most people in the studio, or most people who are socialist or anti-capitalist or whatever, aren't arguing for equal wealth distribution. That might be true. That might not be true. I suspect it's not true. Or I suspect that it is true that most of them aren't arguing for equal wealth distribution, but that's hard to say.
Do you think our system right now allows people to stay in those situations long term?
they force them to stay in those situations long term.
Okay, so part of me actually agrees with you, but why do you think they force them to stay in those situations long term?
I think because they are trying to convince the working class that they don't have rights.
I actually don't think that's what it is, although that's fair to your point here. What's the chances that any of you here voted for Donald Trump in 2024? Exactly, right? What is the chances that all of you here can't stand the phrase MAGA, Donald Trump, any of that stuff? Is that a fair assessment? Fair, okay.
Yeah, so it's your
So
point.
think about it this way. So maybe you're right that the Democratic Party that's been earning your vote for a long time wants to keep you there because they'll
They
have
have
your vote
never
for the
earned
rest
my
of your life.
vote. They have never earned my
Who
vote.
did you vote for in 2024?
In 24, I voted for the socialist candidate.
Who was that?
Claudia de la Cruz, I believe.
Who did you vote for in 2020?
I was actually not able to vote. I was in a hospital.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes,
Sorry.
because of results of capitalism.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so I didn't have access to proper health care or even access to a proper job that would sustain me as a disabled person.
Are you comfortable being specific on what happened?
I
You don't
guess
have to if
so.
you're not
I mean,
comfortable
I'm
with it.
also mentally ill, so that was something I had to deal with. But I'm mainly mentally ill because I am disabled in a capitalist country.
Hey, tell me more about mentally ill. Who qualified you as somebody that's mentally ill?
Me and my doctor
Okay.
team.
More jumping around, more like, instead of focusing on the claim that she made about how, like, capitalists are trying to convince you that you don't have rights and stay in poverty or blah, blah, blah. And now he's at, why are you mentally ill? Who told you were mentally ill? Why didn't you vote? Like, what were you doing?
Who convinced you that you're
So
mentally ill?
weird.
Me and my doctor team.
What's the specific category of mental illness? Is there one? You know why I asked the question? Let me explain why I asked the
So
question.
I don't even like the psychological industry. I don't really stand for like Sigmund Freudian politics or
Sure.
anything like that. So if you're
Yeah,
going
I
to debate the
I don't know what
ethics,
I don't know what Sigmund Freudian politics means. I don't know why she said that. I don't like. There's real valid critiques of the field of psychology, and I don't even know what this is enough to like unpack it.
of
I'm
psychology.
not. Where I'm going with this is going back to the same thing with if the money were to divide it equally, it'll
Yeah.
end up being worked out within 5 years. My trouble is, in many cases, somebody you and I look up to will say something to us that we choose to believe for the rest of our lives. Unfortunately, it could be something where you have ADHD, you're mentally ill, you're poor, you're this, you're
But
that,
why-
and we get to choose to buy into that or not. And if you do,
So you're saying I'm not mentally ill or I'm
I'm not saying you
disabled?
are or you're not.
Notice how he's still not staying on topic, not responding to her point that capitalism has convinced people to stay poor.
I would
Or
challenge.
her claim that people aren't actually advocating for equal redistribution of wealth.
You to go a little bit deeper to see if there's anything you can do about it.
So you're asking me about my health. You're asking me about my
I'm
disability.
not.
and my,
I will say we are in a market where, stay with me here.
What happened? Did something happen to the stream? Can you not hear? Let me know if you guys can hear in chat, and then I'll play it again when I get an okay. Someone just give me a thumbs up. Don't make me nervous here. Let me make sure I'm okay. Okay. I'm not hearing from anyone, so I'm assuming I'm okay because that comment was 2 minutes ago. right, I will keep an eye on the chat then.
There is a market where there's profit to convince you to you have issues to take the medication because they're making money.
Yeah, but I don't have access to the medication. I don't have access to even a result or a solution to my disability as someone with a connective tissue disorder. It's genetic.
Have you been able to go to different?
Also, the funny thing is like he literally says like, oh, there's a profit to be made. There's a profit to be made off of like poor individuals. And she's probably the type of person, this is just an assumption on my part, that's going to say like, hey, yeah, that's kind of the point. Like these people are able to exploit people in this way, even if you think like my condition or whatever is fake or blah, blah, blah. Like I'm being exploited because of the system. And he seems like he's agreeing to some extent. Like, oh yeah, just take like what he thinks is happening about the field of psychology and apply that to capitalism generally. Like that's what she's pointing out.
From doctors and get yourself tested?
Yeah.
You have?
Yes.
And in California?
Yes, but not
And
enough.
who paid
I can't
for it?
find a specialist.
You can't find
I can't find a specialist
Is there
for who I
anyone in your
am.
life that's
I
willing
can't
to pay
find
for a
anyone.
specialist?
Well, they could, or they would if they had money.
Anybody
But
Would you be okay if I pay for a specialist for you to go see?
Yeah.
Would you take money from a capitalist to help you go see specialists?
I mean, yeah, sure. Why
I'm
not?
going to have you go see two. Do you live in California?
Yeah.
I'm going to have you go see two specialists. But would you also be open to seeing somebody else I choose as a psychologist that may?
No.
You're not.
No.
So
you
simply-
choose as a psychologist.
I
You're
would-
choosing who gets to determine
No,
what my mental health looks like. No.
Okay, then I wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah. So I think.
Oh my God.
All right. Thanks for
Thank you
talking.
so much. Yes, anytime.
That is just so strange. That puts like such a bad taste in my mouth. Ugh, I don't like it. The fact that he's like, let me choose. I need to choose. Your mental illness needs to be determined by me. Like, if I pay for it, I own you. I own your mental health care. That shit's so fucking crazy. Okay. Let me see. It's this guy. There was somebody else. I thought that was when he referenced me. Okay. Claim 3. Okay, here, we'll go to claim 3.
My final claim is the U.S. is more socialist than capitalist today. If you hate the system, you're anti-socialist.
Hello
You're back at it again.
Yeah.
Dina's outfit.
Yeah, so I think
eats,
it's
by
super
the
important
way.
here for all leftists alike, but for the audience in general to define what these terms are. I think the best way to do it would be to look at the theorists, right? Over history, we've seen communism and socialism talked about by governments and by, I guess, programs, but we never actually read the actual theory. And what theorists all agree on is that socialism would be a transitionary state between capitalism and communism, where the means of production are specifically owned by workers, not privately. The idea that any country now is anywhere near socialist, let alone communist, would simply be ridiculous and just it wouldn't reflect theory whatsoever.
What is the definition of communism to you?
Stateless, moneyless class of society.
And you prefer that?
Yeah, so I think that we should be moving towards,
communism.
Yeah, stateless, moneyless class of society.
So
yeah.
you don't think a person like me should exist with the amount of wealth that I have?
Yeah, because I think that we're getting to this point where we're creating fake scarcity for people
Right.
like you to accumulate the wealth that you have on the basis of private ownership.
Okay, so you're not capitalist. You're definitely not capitalist. You're not socialist. You want to go full communism.
So what do you think that looks like, though, is the thing, right? So what Marx actually wanted was for us to reach a point where we no longer have the scarcity of resources that has kind of predicted, history as it looks like now. It wouldn't happen now. It would happen as we automate. At this point in time, we can decommodify housing and food and education for around 5% of the government budget. That's 1/5, a little bit over 1/5 of what we spend on the military already. We don't because we were living in the state where we almost seems utopian.
This claim is not realistic. Wait. For instance, U.S. consumers and entities spend $2.6 trillion on food alone in 2024. The government spent a total of $6.75 trillion. So food would have been 38% of that. What kind of fact check is this? Claim is not realistic. For instance, U.S. consumers and entities spend $2.6 trillion on food alone in 2024. The government, consumers and entities? What is an entity? Is that a family? Is that a company? Is that government spent $6.75 trillion, so food would have been 38% of that? What is this fact check? Is there like a SAN app for unbiased fact-based news, right? Okay, let's see. Let's look that up. How much did Americans spend on food 2024? Okay, the increase was driven by higher spending on both food at home and food away from home, dining out. Well, food at home spending rose to 1.09 trillion. What is entities, though? That's just the AI overview, by the way. So let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Total food spending by who? Sorry, I'm looking at this from Economic Research Service from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Let's see. Food expenditures by the U.S. government. Oh, and government entities. Food expenditure by U.S. consumers, businesses, and government entities reached 2.63 trillion. Food away from home, looks like by consumers on this chart is in the, it's in like the 1.09. Let's see, expenditures, share of total. Food away from home expenditures as a share of total reached a high of 58.5%. That is from, I'm assuming individuals. Climbing from, so it looks like 1.46 trillion in 2023 to 1.56 trillion from food away from home. And that's of the individuals or like Americans, not from government entities, consumers, or not government entities and businesses is what I'm assuming. So to say this is, I actually will point this out. Like, okay, 38% of the 6.75 includes businesses spending, right? If that's what I'm reading correctly. Hold on. Yeah, so the 2.6 million is a combination of consumers, businesses, and government. So you're already including the government number in there that they do. So it wouldn't realistically be 38%.
And that things like food,
especially
the first time you thought,
especially when you consider like the types of foods that would be covered. So this is somewhat misleading.
you wanted to be
Just keep that in-
is that a response to any of the statistics?
No, because the statistics are against you. It's never worked. There's so many Cubans that moved to Miami. They love their country. They hate the politics. In Russia, they
do you know how much money?
Because it didn't work. It killed so many
because
people.
almost like it wasn't communist.
It's almost
was there a state?
amateurish
Yes, there was. Was there class?
communistic
Yes, there
argument.
was. It's almost like you're not replying to any of the statistics that I've presented to you. I think that's the biggest
You're
problem.
a dictator.
I will say, one of the things that it seems like there's a bit of a struggle doing is explaining what that would look like, what a stateless, classless, moneyless society would look like. And so the capitalist will say something like, well, yeah, there was a state. Like there was the government existed. The government did these things. And then the like they'll say like, oh, that's communism. And then the communist will go like, oh, it's not communism because there's still a state. And it's like, okay, well, what does that look like then without that? That's what I would be curious to maybe hear about.
Dictators would not be allowed under communism.
Dictators end up, of course, under communism.
They weren't.
If somebody's taxing 100%, what is a dictatorship?
So again, how much money do you think? How much money
taxes? What is communism?
How much money do you think?
Dictatorship.
How much money do you think would it take to, I don't know, allow everyone food, shelter, water, and education in this country?
How much money would it take?
Yeah.
But going back to your question here with communism, stay on that point there with
Nothing
communism.
I'm trying to respond to.
But I'm trying to
He
find out
doesn't
from you here.
respond.
You're saying communism is not dictatorship.
No.
Define dictatorship.
Yeah. So when one person or one small entity,
Right.
is able to, enforce its will on the people. When we have a private ownership, when we have a system based on private ownership, that's what happens every
That's
single
dictatorship.
time. Yeah. So we
Dictatorship is private ownership.
Yeah. So private
So let me
private
get
ownership.
under communism,
How
under communism doesn't Elon Musk exist?
Okay, he's not letting her talk.
Yeah. No.
No, so that's dictatorship. Thank you.
That's completely incorrect. Under capitalism, we don't have, the freedom for people to.
You do.
Okay, so under capitalism, right? We don't see that the commodification.
Would you consider China
We don't see
communism
the
right now? Would you
commodification of
consider China
food,
communism right now?
shelter, or water, or
Would you
education
consider
when we
China
can
communism?
with 5% of the budget. Why don't we see
Would you
that?
consider China communism?
Why haven't you answered any of my questions?
Would you consider
Why
China?
haven't you responded to any of my statistics?
Would you consider China
It's
communism?
almost like we're not having a conversation.
We are having a conversation. We have an argument that's been proven that it's not working.
It's almost like I just
Everybody
gave you a
is
definition of
moving
communism for you
away
to
from it.
critique, and you haven't been able
If
to.
it's such a great system, why are other
It hasn't
nations
happened yet
not?
because we've never been at a point for it to happen.
Because we've not found a noble person
No,
that
because
can do it the right way. That's not a
if you were to read the
dictator.
plain text
Right.
of Marx, we would see
Right.
that he wanted
I've
us
read
to reach.
Communist Manifesto. I've gone
I
through it.
promise you, if you
Have
have,
you
you
read
wouldn't have
Wealth of
said
Nations?
that
Have you
capitalism
read
today
Wealth
is
of Nations?
socialist.
Have you read Wealth of
Yeah,
Nations?
so I've read Das Kapital, I've read Communist Manifesto as well, Engels' Collective Works, etc. What do you think? If you think that the communism is in any way
It's
us
dictatorship.
having wages or us having a
It's
privatized means of
dictatorship.
production, you don't know
You
what it
choose
is.
my dreams, and I refuse to do that.
Who are you
don't get
arguing
to
with?
dictate my
Where did you
dreams.
get that from?
What do you mean?
Well, haven't I? That was awesome.
Okay, I think she kind of made him up there. There was, damn, I wish I could find that clip. I'll go back and watch Gabby's second part because I think Gabby did amazing and I really like the way she speaks.
Tanya?
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you.
I don't want to spend the whole time
How are you?
going through every single.
Can you remind me again why you think this country is largely socialist?
Out of the $4.9 trillion of revenue that we get in, 4.9, 68% goes to entitlement programs. That's the reason why I say America's socialism.
Do you think that we should have a say in where our taxpayer dollars go?
That's why we have elections.
Okay.
You vote for it. Yeah.
So you agree that we should have a say in where our taxpayer dollars go?
If you're asking me who should have a right to vote, I would change the system in a major way of who would have the right to vote.
I'm not asking you if
you're asking me a question.
I'm not asking you who should have the right to vote.
Right.
I'm asking you, do you think that
The
our
current system
taxpayer dollars should be
allows-
dictated by us?
The
where that
current
goes?
election allows you to vote and decide who you want to be your candidate.
Absolutely. Okay. So I would argue that the biggest handouts go to billionaires because we give billions and billions of dollars in subsidies to billionaires every single year. Elon Musk just got a huge raise. Not sure why. He's worth over like the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Be specific. You're talking about SpaceX?
I'm talking about SpaceX,
I
Tesla.
do want to
SpaceX.
talk about what this claim is. If the U.S. is more socialist than capitalist today, you hate the system, you're anti-socialist. One, it seems to be begging the question that he can point to what we have, no matter what it is, and go, that's socialist, that's socialism. And then say, well, that's the problem. You must hate, you must hate the system. So it seems like it can just give him the ability to call anything, even if it's not socialism, even if it's like a welfare program, because you can be a capitalist and believe in like some welfare programs. Like, I don't think, how many Republicans probably are capitalist and also are pro retirement or something like that. So it's kind of like this, just defining it into socialism that I don't like that he does. And then it's, of course, if you don't like it, then it's bad. But it's strange because I don't think typically he would call the US a socialist country. Like if he, compared the socialist countries or communist countries that he thinks exist right now, like maybe he thinks China is communist or something like that. And you ask him, okay, well, what type of government do they have? He'd probably say communist, and then he probably would say, or economic system, he probably would say capitalist for the United States. Like he would say, yeah, we're largely capitalist because, we have open trade sometimes for the most part, or no, we have all of these things. But what this allows him to do is just to go, oh, see the bad stuff? That's socialism. You must hate socialism.
About the companies that we fund as taxpayers. So why did we never vote for that?
Why did you never vote for the money going to some of these
companies? Do you see an issue with the fact that we as
Well,
taxpayers didn't have a say in, first of all, electing this tech oligarch?
Once you elect somebody,
deciding where our taxpayer dollars go.
Once you elect who you elect, what they do next, you don't have a say during that time.
We didn't elect
until the next election. No, I'm talking Congress, Senate. They make a decision on who they give the money to, and they approve.
But he's been getting this amount of subsidies through every administration. I'm not just referring to the Trump administration.
Let's talk about how he's done. Okay, so the NASA was shut down many years ago. Okay. Since then, how has NASA done? Trying to find a way to go to space. What has SpaceX done? SpaceX has been able to do.
What has NASA done? NASA gave us the satellite, which you use every time you use your phone.
If you let me finish, NASA versus SpaceX. Elon Musk, as much as you hate him, Elon Musk was able to go to space for 1/20th of a cost because government organizations.
Elon Musk has the ability to eradicate extreme poverty in this country, and he chooses to send rockets into space and make extremely ugly cars that we never actually funded.
Believe it or not, most liberals drive his car. So.
Well, I would say the Cybertruck's it's a poor decision aesthetically.
The Cybertruck.
I'm not discussing the aesthetics of his products.
It's so funny because when you say what you say about the Democratic side on the climate change side, the guy that's worked towards that the most, you guys loved him till he supported Trump. Elon was your favorite 8 years ago until he supported Trump. The moment he went into Trump, this guy's a horrible guy. This guy's a terrible guy.
To be fair, I've hated Elon Musk consistently throughout my adult life, and I also think that he is someone who has benefited immensely from the government. That's why I find hypocrisy in what you're saying.
I don't disagree on that side.
He's benefited immensely from the exploitation of labor overseas. He's benefited immensely from his extremely aggressive union busting tactics. So I'm saying, like, why are we
positive?
Yeah, I think the funny thing is like he's okay with like social programs in a sense, like programs for corporations or like tax cuts for corporations, but he's not okay with like tax cuts for the ultra poor, for the, abject poverty. So
you for society?
Is he a net positive for me personally?
Is he a net positive for society, not for you?
I wouldn't say so.
You don't think he is?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Who is a net positive to society? Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders is, I would say he's a compromise candidate, but I would say that
he's a compromise candidate.
Yes.
Is AOC a net positive to society?
I would say net positive, yes.
More than Musk is?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? Tell me why.
Because AOC wants to introduce a Green New Deal.
And I think that not responding to things she's saying.
New Deal is the closest thing.
$30 trillion?
Okay, Trump literally just added $3.4 trillion to our deficit, so I really don't want to hear.
30 trillion and
okay, so I'm saying,
trillion.
I'm saying that I think that when we look at the system that we currently have, I think that we need to redistribute the wealth in a significant way, and we need to reintroduce something like the New Deal. And I think AOC has been the closest to doing that. I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of her, but I'm saying that we need a marginal tax rate that is something similar to.
I just got a DM that said my stream was suspended. Oh, God. Let's see. Let's go see what's going on. I wonder if I'm getting copyright struck. Policy violations.
The New Deal, 70 to 90%.
Okay, hold on.